What's up, everybody? I need to replace the screen on my son's Nexus 7 2013. It's a lot easier if you purchase the LCD panel that comes with the frame. I found one on eBay for a good price, so that's what I'm going to use. When you're opening the back cover, don't pry near where the USB charge port is located. It's a lot easier to start at the top of the tablet at the corner. So before touching anything on the inside, you want to disconnect the battery. Just lift up from the sides of the connector. Next, let's disconnect the cables on the motherboard. There's a silver cable and there's a gold cable. It's best practice to use a plastic spudger tool, but I use a small flathead screwdriver. Pry the golden cable connector up. The silver ribbon is connected by a latch. Lift up on the latch. Now you can gently pull on the silver cable as close as you can to the connector. There is a small ribbon cable attached to the volume and power keys. Lift up on the black latch and pull the cable back. There are a total of 8 screws holding in the motherboard. Notice that there are black screws and silver screws. They are not the same. The black screws are actually shorter than the silver screws. Go ahead and remove those. Now let's disconnect the speaker cable. There are some small gaps on the side of the connector. Take your time and alternate from one side to the other as you push out the connector. The rear-facing camera is actually attached to the motherboard through a ribbon cable that's underneath. The camera is also held in with an adhesive from underneath. Wiggle the camera away from the adhesive using the 3 sides not related to the connector. Just make sure it can be lifted all the way up. Now you can lift up on the motherboard, the speaker, and the camera. Now let's move on to the daughter board. Unplug the speaker connector by wiggling it out side to side. Now let's remove the silver ribbon cable by lifting up on the black plastic latch. Now you can gently pull the silver cable out of the way. The other 2 cables are held in similarly. Lift up on the plastic white latches. The 2 ribbon cables can be held with an adhesive from under that gray tape. Lift up on the gray tape, then you can start to pull back on the ribbon cable. There are a total of 9 screws holding in the daughter board. Go ahead and remove those. You want to lift the daughter board from the USB port side. The battery holder has a tab that sticks out over the board, so be careful with that. You can move the 2 ribbon cables out of the way to help that motherboard slide up. Lift that lower speaker out. The golden cable is still attached to the LCD panel. The latch is missing on my screen, so I simulated lifting up the latch. There are 4 screws that hold in the battery. Remove them and lift the battery out. Insert the battery into your new screen and fasten the 4 screws. Just make sure that the battery cable faces up and opposite the volume and power button. Insert the lower speaker into the frame. Lift up that black latch in order to insert the golden ribbon cable. Make sure the golden contacts are fully inserted. Lock down the latch. Insert the daughter board, tucking it under the battery holder tab. Pull out the ribbon cables and the speaker cable and lower the board. Insert those 2 ribbon cables by pulling them back and then down and then forward and then wiggle them in. Push on the ears if you want to make sure that they are fully inserted. Lock down the white latches. There's a top side and the bottom side to the speaker cable. Guide the cable with your finger and then firmly seat it with a tool. Keep in mind the location of the silver screws versus the black screws. Now you can insert the screws onto the daughter board. I noticed that the eBay seller sent me a frame that is missing a piece of the ribbon cable where the power and volume buttons are located. So I had to swap it for my other frame. It is attached using an adhesive, so you can just gently pry it. If it does not adhere to the new frame, you can add double-sided tape. Just match the pattern and seat it down. Okay, let's insert that upper speaker into the frame. As you insert the motherboard, watch for the golden ribbon cable, the speaker cable, and the ribbon cable for the volume and power buttons. My golden cable got stuck in there, so I had to pull it back out. Press down on the motherboard and wiggle it to make sure it's firmly seated. Attach the ribbon cable for the volume and power button and press down to lock the latch. Reinstall your screws, keeping in mind where the silver screws versus the black screws go in. Now let's attach the silver cable. Gently insert it by guiding it with your hand. Then press down on the opposite end of the silver cable and slide those fingers towards the connector. Lock the cable down with the latch. Guide the golden cable over the motherboard and wiggle it so it's centered. Press down to snap it in place. Guide the speaker cable with your finger and snap it in place with the tool. Now fasten down the power cable. Insert the back cover first through the USB charge port. Once it is secured, press on the back cover and start at the bottom, and moving up to the top, snap everything in place. Check the sides of the cover to make sure everything is fastened. Initially, my tablet would not turn on. I had to connect the power cable and charge it for about 20 minutes, and then it came on. The last thing I want to mention is related to charging the tablet. You don't need to have the original charger, but it's a great idea if you can match the amperage of the original charger. So the original charger is 1.35 amps, but any 1 amp charger will do just fine. It actually charges slower if you start using a 2.1 amp charger or even a 2.4 amp charger. Alright, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. Corrections and updates will be in the description of the video. Thank you for watching.